Hi guys, so as promised in my blog post, I wanted to talk about some simple strategies to find academically relevant people that you can follow on Twitter. And to help make my point, I wanted to use a subset of English language and literature that I'm not actually in. I'm in digital media studies, so a lot of people give me this counter argument that, oh, you guys are the digital media people, so of course you're all on Twitter, but that's not going to be the case in my subfield. So to be really pushy, I've decided to look for medieval literature, which is not my academic field, and I'm not totally sure what I'm going to find. I'm starting with just one piece of information supplied by my friend Tracy, who is in medieval literature, and she said that the major conference in medieval studies is the International Congress on Medieval Studies. So I simply started by just typing the International Conference of Medieval Studies into Twitter. So you can see I just put, hold on, sorry, my cat's stepping on the keyboard. Way to go, cat. I just put International Congress on Medieval Studies, Twitter, and immediately at the top I got some Twitter streams that were really relevant. You can see that there are people who are going to the conference, right? There's people who have posted things to YouTube about the conference, but the first result is actually the Twitter feed of the particular conference itself, which is great. So here's your first follow. You could follow the major conference in medieval literature by pressing the follow button right here. Now, before we move on to followers, I want to point out a few features of the interface that are important when you're deciding whether to follow someone. The first is that there will always be a biographical jot here at the top about the person or organization that's doing this Twitter stream. So you want to read this carefully, especially if it's someone whose screen name doesn't immediately tell you who it is. You'll also get useful information like this. You'll notice this hashtag KZU2011. A hashtag, which is marked by these little pound signs, is a Twitter code so that people who are all tweeting about the same thing can organize their tweets around a common term. And it's becoming more and more common for academics to have a hashtag. Now you'll notice when you click on a hashtag like this, Twitter will automatically search for any tweets with that hashtag. Now in this case, there aren't really many tweets recently for that hashtag because this conference isn't happening until 2011. But to give you an example, I'm currently following a conference in progress called Watson. And the Watson conference is happening even as we speak in Louisville, Kentucky. So I'm using an interface called Tweet Chat, which allows you to follow hashtags, and I just typed in Watson 2010, and it took me to an interface where I could see in real time updates of people from the conference itself. I can also add my own tweets, and this interface will automatically add the tag Watson 2010 to mine so that if I wanted to talk to people at this conference, I could. Now watch, from here, using the hashtag in progress, I have access to all of these other people, many of whom are not on my follow list. For example, this ANETV, I don't know this user, but based on what they're saying, maybe it's somebody that I need to have on my feed. So I'm going to click through this link since she's tweeting about something that I'm really interested in, and let's see who this person is. Annette V. Now you guys probably don't recognize this name, but I recognize this name. This is a scholar in my field, and now that I can see her real name, I know exactly who she is. And it turns out I am following her. See, I didn't even remember. But if I weren't following her, that would be a great way to pick up more followers. Now let's go back to our medieval example for a moment. So let's say I've already chosen to follow this conference. There are other ways besides using the actual conference goers, which is what we just talked about, right? Something like finding the other people who are following the hashtag that can easily get me to the right people. One really easy way is to look for this listed feature in the Twitter interface. Lists are compiled by Twitter users along common topics, and they compile multiple users that sort of are under a single branch. So you'll see that KZUL CMS, this conference, is on a number of lists that have really seemingly sort of obvious subjects like medieval history or medievalists. So let's choose one of these lists and just see what's on it. How about this guy's list? Okay, the way that lists work is when you click into the list, you're going to see the tweets from everyone who's on the list. So you could either just browse along, right, and look for some of the tweets that look particularly relevant. For example, this article about the women of Papal Avignon. I don't care, but medievalists would really care. And you could click through to each of these people and add them to your Twitter list. Or if you go to following, it will tell you who is being followed by the entire list. So you could just click through them one by one. Now let's talk about how you evaluate someone once you get in to a particular interface. So something like Post-Medieval, a journal of medieval cultural studies. We can see it over here in the preview window on the side. What I like to do is I like to look at the first 3, 4, or 5 tweets and evaluate whether any of them are of interest to me. In other words, can I expect this person in the future to be tweeting things that I really care about? Now, I'm not a medievalist, so I'm not really equipped to make that call, but I'm sure some people would be equipped to make that call. Okay, so let's say they decided that they did want to follow post-medieval. Another way that you can do this in addition to the lists, which we've already talked about, is you can also look at who they are following, so who is post-medieval reading tweets about, and also the followers, so who is reading post-medieval tweets. I find that generally speaking, the following list is going to be a little more faithful to that original person's interests. The followers could be following post-medieval for a lot of very different reasons. But if we click through to following, looks like post-medieval follows 49 people. And you can see already a lot of these would be of great interest to a medievalist, something like the web editor at the British Library, let's see, the Institute for Historical Research, just a medieval history fan, right, who might have some really interesting things to say about the topic and has tweeted quite a bit. And look at the great resources that this person shares. So as you can see, in literally a matter of minutes, you can have access to all of these wonderful people on Twitter and be adding them to your tweet list. So let's see what we haven't covered. Oh yeah, suggested follows. So let's say that is not enough for you. Let's go back to my personal Twitter page, and you'll see that Twitter has this feature called suggested follows. Here it is down here. It says who to follow, suggestions for you. The way that Twitter does this is it looks at who you are following already, and it kind of uses that to triangulate what your interests must be, and it looks at who those other people that you're following are also following, and then it sort of finds people in the community that maybe you should be following, but you're not yet. So for example, you'll see because my list is pretty long and I'm following a fair number of people already, it's making pretty good recommendations, right? Here's an assistant professor writing in digital spaces, history of new media professor. Now again, I may not choose to follow all of these people, but I'll follow them sort of based on how much I like their profiles, right? Or how much I like the tweets at their location. So let's just click through to Dan Cohen, because I think he's pretty cool in real life. Loading. And I'm going to look at his tweets to see if he tweets about the kinds of things that I really care about. Oh, this is good. You'll notice that a lot of these tweets begin with an @ and then a screen name. This is what's called a tweet directly to somebody else, not to be mixed up with the direct message, but this is designed to be read by that person. And when you follow Dan Cohen, you may not see these. You'll only see the things that he's broadcasting to everybody, like this one, right, about this Nike app or whatever. So when I'm evaluating, I'm looking at the tweets that he's sending to everybody. So he's sending something about Zotero. I really like Zotero. He's talking about let's get video on Wikipedia. That's something that I really care about. He's talking about scholarly meetings. What should they look like? So it looks like Dan Cohen tweets about a lot of things that I care about. So I'm going to choose to follow him. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any problems finding people on Twitter that should be followed or that you want to follow, let me know. But I bet this strategy is really going to work for you, especially if you can just get yourself onto the right Twitter lists. You'll find a lot of really valuable people. The last suggestion I have is to always look at the retweets on your list. And if someone has retweeted, like Christian Long is someone I already follow, it's a great idea to click through to the person who authored the original tweet that's being retweeted, because there's a good chance that you're going to like their tweets too. In this case, I already follow @TEDTalks, so I don't need to click through, but I'm sure if I scroll down far enough, I would find a retweet by someone like IdeaGuy42 that I might really like. So I hope that helps populate your user list, and happy tweeting.